Get £20 in risk-free bets ahead of the new Premier League season when you join SPK. That's money back in cash on your first £20 of losses. Well worth a go. Welcome to episode 38 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As normal, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster Dean Jones to discuss all the latest news on gossip from the world of football. Transfer window's getting busy, Dean. Some big deals now starting to happen. It looks like Man United have got their man in Rafael Varane, so we don't have to talk about him anymore, thankfully.
Yeah.
A big signing of intent from United. Are the blue side of Manchester going to make a big signing as well also soon? Lots of reports saying they're getting closer to doing a deal for Jack Grealish of Aston Villa. Talks are at an advanced stage now, and it seems like it's just down to an agreeing a fee with Villa for the England international. What's your latest take on this deal, and what will he bring to Pep Guardiola's side if he does move to the Etihad?
Yeah, well, City definitely can't let United have it all their own way in this transfer window, can they? And they need to react at some point. And I think they will. They've had this set up for a long time now that they were going to make a statement. So I think they're in a good position to do that. And like you say, on the Grealish side of things, I think they're very comfortable that they know that they could satisfy the player's wage demands, what he's looking for as the next step in his career, the trophies, everything's there for Jack Grealish. It's a great step for him. And they just have to convince Aston Villa to sell. I think Aston Villa are actually open to selling Jack Grealish. From what I understand, it's just that the amount of money has to be right for that to happen. They have to be seen to saying he's not for sale. Of course they do, because he's not on the transfer market. That's what that means. He's not for sale in that sense. But if you go and put £80 million in front of Aston Villa, then that gives them a decision to make, and ultimately they're going to have to take it because Jack Grealish is going to want to go at that point. Look, he revitalises that Villa attack, doesn't he? That Man City attack, and he gives you options centrally just off the striker, whoever that may be. He can play off the left side as well. He gives you a versatility. We've seen him already, how he linked up with Foden, with Sterling, with Kane. So it's perfect, really, from both sides of it. Of course, English as well. Man City have a big budget for this window, and that's because financial fair play is basically on pause right now. And it means that clubs with huge wealth, huge personal wealth, can use that to their advantage. So you've seen PSG go and make a big statement already, and they're throwing huge wages at people. You've seen that happen, or you're seeing that happen with talk of Chelsea potentially going after Haaland and Declan Rice. And that's more money they would normally be able to spend. And that's why Man City in the same situation and being able to spend £200 million, possibly even more than that, to get Grealish and Kane in this window.
Yeah, it seems they are the two top targets, Jack Grealish and Harry Kane. Real exciting prospect for Manchester City fans to think of Jack Grealish, Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden all in the same team. I think you might have to get the opposition another ball because they're not going to see a lot of it with those three in the team. So, yeah, if they get Grealish in and Kane, you've got to be thinking big favourites to go on and win the Premier League again with those players in the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that they've learned, we saw Liverpool stand still this season that they won the league and they get injuries and they just fall apart. And Man City know that they can't stand still right now, especially, United came second and now they've added Sancho and Varane to the mix, and they're going to add at least one more, possibly two more. So they understand what's needed. That there are players that are going to move on. Obviously, Bernardo Silva's looking for a move, and Gabby Jesus might be moved on as well. So they need to recycle a little bit of their options in attack anyway. They don't really have many alternatives. Possibly Lukaku they might try for if Kane doesn't come off. But in the Grealish position, they seem to me to be so confident that they will get Grealish that they don't really have another alternative lined up. So I think that's another reason to believe that they probably will get him.
Yeah, from everything I'm hearing, it's a done deal without it actually being official. But yeah, Manchester City is super confident that they'll get this deal done, and Jack Grealish will be a Manchester City player ahead of the new season. And what a signing that is for Pep Guardiola's men, just to make them even stronger. But on the flip side, Dean, Aston Villa, it'll be a massive wrench for Grealish to leave, but a big blow for them as well. He's been their talisman since they've returned to the Premier League. He's obviously outlined his class for them on several big games as well. They'll have a lot of money in their pocket to spend now. They've already brought in Emi Buendia. now. Supposedly Leon Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen and Todd Cantwell seem to be the top two targets that Villa are possibly going for, with two good signings, but not in the class of Grealish. I'd say it's probably fair to say.
Yeah, not at the moment anyway. I mean, look, Villa don't really have any financial problems anyway, so they were always in a strong position in this transfer window. And, you know, if they had £80 million or whatever it ends up being for Jack Grealish, then that will be reinvested almost immediately, possibly even beforehand, to be honest. They're obviously looking to get deals done because they know that this Grealish deal is plausible. Like you say, Leon Bailey and Todd Cantwell both emerging. I mean, Cantwell's been on the radar of a few clubs since the end of the season, really. I remember back in March, somebody told me that Newcastle were looking at him. I've heard that Tottenham were looking at him as well. Leicester, I've heard had a look at him as well. So, you know, they're not necessarily going to have things all their own way if they do start bidding on that front. But Norwich ultimately won't stand in the way of any of their players as long as the valuation of those players is met. They will let them go. So, an interesting idea. Leon Bailey, I'm always sceptical of because this happens every year and his representatives are hard work. Let's put it that way. So let's see on Leon Bailey. I'm reserving judgment there.
Yeah, as you said, he's been linked with the Premier League for several seasons now and still remains in Germany. Bayer Leverkusen, pretty rich club as well in financial stakes, so they're not in any mad rush to let Bailey go as well. But from what I'm hearing, first bid's been rejected for the Jamaican international as well. So I'm sure Aston Villa will come back with a second bid for Bailey, and I'm sure it's his dream to maybe come to the Premier League. But he's the type of player who's got all the attributes to be a success in the Prem.
Yeah, he really has. I think that when you think about the type of clubs he's been linked with before now, they were top six clubs, basically. Like, he's got all the attributes there to be a star. I think there's been a few reservations about whether he could really handle it at the very top. So maybe actually this is a good platform for him, and it is actually a better fit to go into a club like Villa who are hugely ambitious and they've got big plans for the next couple of seasons. They're certainly not thinking about getting involved in a relegation scrap in this season. They're looking to build on what they did last season with or without Jack Grealish. So, he would be a good sign-in. As I say, I'm just never sure whether he's actually going to go through with it because we've got to this stage before.
Yeah, let's see if Villa can finally get a deal done and bring young Leon Bailey to the Premier League as well. But I'm presuming, and I'm probably imagining, that Villa will be one of the biggest spenders probably in the final few weeks of the window, especially if they do have a large sum of money from the Jack Grealish deal to maybe spend. Another name that I keep hearing being linked is Dwight McNeil of Burnley. I think type of signing who would probably fit right into the Burnley style. And Dean Smith does seem to like going down the English side, or players who've at least played in England to try and strengthen the squad. So Dwight McNeil, although he's attracted interest from Everton as well, I think he's going to be highly sought after from Villa, probably in the final closing weeks of this transfer window.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. And from what I understand, he is interested in the prospect of changing clubs, if not now, then in the next year, because he needs to change the style of football team that he's in order to really thrive. You know, he likes Burnley. He's been very grateful for the opportunities he's had to shine, but ultimately he wants to be in a side that is more progressive, and I think that he's more likely to be able to do that at a team like Villa.
Yeah, it's going to be a big few weeks for Villa. Let's see if Jack Grealish does end up leaving and who they maybe bring in to replace the England international. No doubt Man United are so far winning the transfer window this summer. They've made a big signing in Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane also on his way. It seems like Kieran Trippier is the next name on the hit list for Ole Gunnar Solskjær's side. This one's been rumbling on most of the summer. I think during the Euros, United had a bid for Trippier, which was rejected by Atletico Madrid. There are no real rush to see the fullback leave the club this summer. They would ideally like him to stay at the club, but I think Trippier definitely interested in a move to United and return to the Premier League. Do you see this deal happening?
I definitely think it's still possible, and now that Varane deals, all come together so quickly, United have got basically a month now to sort out the last pieces of business, and I think that right back and Trippier is an option, and I think the midfielder is still on the agenda as well. So. Also helps that Varane was reasonably cheap. They'd always set aside £50 million for a centre back for this window. They haven't had to go as far as spending all that budget. So that is going to help them in terms of making up some of that gap that Atleti want on Kieran Trippier. I don't think they're going to cave in and go near the 30 million that Atleti are looking for. But even if they come up, 10 million is obviously way too far away from that. Even if you're getting up towards that 18 million mark, somewhere around there, you might be able to strike a deal as long as Atleti can find somebody to come in, which they're currently working on to try and replace Trippier. If they can't, I still think Trippier will be looking for a move to England, and I wouldn't rule out another Premier League club coming in for him, to be honest. And yeah, in terms of United and those other positions, let's see what they do in midfield, and let's see what happens with Pogba, because I think there is potential that they sign a midfielder even if Pogba stays. But if he's going to go, then they definitely have to.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. That takes us nicely on to Paul Pogba's future, which, again, it's a transfer window. We're going to have a speculation surrounding the Frenchman. Entering the final year of his contracting, still seems no nearer to signing a new contract at Old Trafford. Man United probably privately feel now is the time to try and sell Pogba, because they don't want to have a situation where he's into the final 6 months of his contract, heading into the January transfer window as well. So they've been down this road before with Paul Pogba, Man United, when he left all those years ago, when he turned down a contract offer from Sir Alex Ferguson to go to Juventus, where he eventually went and made his name and became the superstar that he is. PSG being the ones strongly linked with Pogba, but they've got their own problems. They probably need to sell players first before they can maybe fund a move for Paul Pogba. So what's your take on this whole situation with Paul Pogba? Do you think he'll be a Man United player come the end of the window?
I do, actually. Yeah, I think personally he'll still be at United. I mean, like you say, PSG needs to move somebody on, and like probably in financial terms, but also just in the fact they've got loads and loads of midfielders right now, and there's not really an obvious space for Pogba to come and land. So there's that. United are expecting PSG to bid. Like, that's the noise coming out of the club, is that they think this is going to happen. And if that's the case, then I presume that they've been sounded out by an intermediary or somebody to give them that inclination. What I do wonder, though, is why would Pogba commit himself to anything right now? What does he gain from signing a new contract at Man United right now? Nothing really. He just ties himself down to another contract he doesn't want to be in. I mean, he's spent the last 2 years telling us he doesn't want to be there. Why sign a new contract? Why get stuck in it so that he can't go on and fulfill his dreams, if you like? Because all we've heard throughout his career is Real Madrid, Real Madrid. If you sign that contract now, you go back to being a £100 million player, and it kills your chance pretty much of going to Real Madrid next year. Yes, PSG might come in with that offer. Yes, Man United might want to do business and might be willing to do it at under £50 million, which is all fine. Does Pogba really even want to go to PSG, or does he want to leave that door open so that he can assess things over the next few months and just see really what is the best thing for him? Because he's going to be 29 soon, and the style of player he is, the position he plays in, he's got to be pretty careful and make sure that he gets this next decision right, because he's almost wasted the last few years of his career. And if he gets to January, he can have assessed just what strong position United are in with Sancho, with Varane. Are they looking like they might win the league? Is it worth signing a new contract? Or on the flip of that, you get to January, you get to speak to people about pre-contracts, and that's when Juve and Real Madrid and even PSG can come back to the table and say, okay, here's our project, here's what we can pay you, here's Mino Raiola's cut. And everybody, from where I'm looking, would be much happier with that scenario, apart from Man United, obviously. But United have kind of put themselves in this situation, haven't they? They haven't played the bloke for half the time he's been there.
Yeah, obviously he was brought in by Man United for a record deal, then to try and turn them into title contenders and possibly Champions League contenders as well. It hasn't worked out that way. He's been a bit hot and cold, Paul Pogba. Sometimes he looks world class, and then other times he looks like he maybe shouldn't be in the starting 11 as well. But probably the worry for United is that he's been down this road before. He's a strong enough character as well, I think, to happily sit out his contract and run it down thing as well. So that would be a disaster for United if that was to happen again.
It really wouldn't be ideal for them at all. But I mean, the warning signs have been there for long enough that they could have sorted this out. And, the contract talks that they've been trying to have been moving so slowly that I'm sure they've had an inclination that this is where things were heading. Look, it helps that their transfer strategy over the past couple of years seems to be much improved, and the value that they've got out of Varane and Sancho helps make up for that. but still losing Pogba for free would be less than ideal. I think they just have to start thinking about how they move on from it. And we're seeing that, the fact that they're sounding out Bayern Munich about Goretzka, about a possible free transfer next year. They're looking at Ruben Neves for right now. You start to get an idea that United are looking to life after Pogba anyway.
Yeah, making some good moves in the transfer window this summer with Sancho and Varane, two world-class performers to improve that team as well. But losing Pogba would be a blow for them as well. But as you said, they are drawing up a list of possible replacements for the Frenchman. Probably the strangest transfer link recently, Dean, has been Liverpool being linked with West Ham's Jarrod Bowen. I don't think many people saw this one coming. Obviously a good player, Jarrod Bowen, but not the big name that Liverpool fans have been crying out for. It's understood that Jurgen Klopp's a big fan of Bowen, and also his agent does look after a couple of prominent Liverpool players as well, in Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. So maybe that gives some credence to this link as well. What's your take on this one, and do you think he would be a good signing if Liverpool did go ahead and try and make a move for him?
I mean, it would be a surprise, but a lot of Liverpool's signings in recent times have been like that. I mean, Minamino, Diego Jota, they weren't really spoken about until they happened. So when you look at it from that point of view, perhaps there is something in it. And like you say, there are already links there that could help make it happen. I think the Liverpool do need to start offloading people before they can bring in. And the big concern really would be from the West Ham point of view, because they haven't signed anyone. They really can't afford to lose anyone. Declan Rice already stuttering about, obviously hasn't signed a new contract so far and is starting to have his head turned and waiting to see if Chelsea do bid for him. Losing Jarrod Bowen, less than ideal for them. They would definitely fight this. So it's an interesting one. There's not too much activity around Liverpool at the moment. I'm not really expecting a lot to happen, to be honest. I think they've got the core of a good squad there. They've certainly already got enough talent there that they can be back in the title race next season. I know that fans always want signings and they want to improve, but they will improve anyway because you've got Thiago more settled, you've got Van Dijk coming back in, you've still got the core of a successful squad. So I think Liverpool will be more than fine. But obviously they are having to start to think about the evolution of this team and how that front three evolves, how the whole side starts to change. And maybe Jarrod Bowen is coming into that thinking.
Yeah, as you said, it's probably going to come down to maybe Liverpool clearing the decks with unwanted players to raise funds for their own transfer deals. Divock Origi, I'm sure, will be on that list. They've already got rid of Harry Wilson to Fulham. Marco Groyok's gone to Porto. And I'm sure Shaqiri, who had a decent Euros for Switzerland's attracting a bit of interest from Serie A clubs as well. So maybe if they bring in a bit more money, Liverpool might be busy in the final few weeks of this window, bring in a midfielder to replace Wijnaldum. And then if there's any money left over, maybe somebody to strengthen the attacking areas of the pitch, and so a position maybe that Jarrod Bowen could fit. I'm sure he would jump at the chance of moving to Anfield and maybe being an understudy to those front three.
Yeah, I think that's it. I agree with you about the timing of it. I mean, Liverpool, it's definitely going to be the final 2 weeks before we see anything particularly exciting happening. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you're going to a club of that level, you start to understand your place, and people do go there to learn, to, I guess, improve themselves behind the scenes so that they're ready to make that impact when they get their opportunity. It's a strange one because I think Jarrod Bowen was doing well and he was on a good trajectory really at West Ham in terms of the platform they were giving him and the impact he was having. So you do risk that momentum starting to slow down if you're not getting the game time that you would want, and he's obviously not going to be a starter if he goes there. So we'll see. We'll have to see whether this can even open up, because as I say, I really don't think West Ham are going to be in much mood to listen to any offers.
Yeah, West Ham, David Moyes will be desperate to keep hold of Bowen. He can play anywhere across that front line as well. Such a versatile player. And we know West Ham have had their struggles up front with lack of options. If Mikel Antonio got injured, Bowen sometimes stepped up into that position as well. And they've also got the Europa League to contend with as well. So West Ham won't be an easy club to try and lure Jarrod Bowen away from this summer if Liverpool do follow up their initial interest. One of the other probably interesting transfer links this summer so far, Dean, has been Arsenal and Aaron Ramsdale of Sheffield United. I know a lot of fans have been raising their eyebrows over Arsenal's pursuit of the England goalkeeper. He's had 2 relegations on his CV in the last couple of seasons with Bournemouth and Sheffield United. Not his fault, obviously, but it's not great on your CV. But he did well in occasions for Sheffield United. Arsenal obviously like something about him. They've already had 2 substantial bids rejected, meant to be coming back with a third one. What's your take on this move from Arsenal for Aaron Ramsdale?
The only thing I'd say that's strange about it really is that it initially came about because they thought that Bernd Leno was going to leave, and they were waiting for that to happen and expecting that to happen. And I mean, here we are, we're just over a month from deadline. Leno's still here. There's not really too much talk about him leaving. So unless there's something that is lined up and promised to him, it would be strange to spend all this time and money on Ramsdale to just leave him as a number 2, because Leno is more than capable as your number 1. So that is strange, but I do think they will make a third and final bid for Ramsdale. I think they will give it another crack. They're pretty convinced that the player would want to join them, as you would expect that to be the case. They just need to satisfy the financial terms that are needed to get it done. So £30 million is a lot of money, and that, especially if it's a position you don't necessarily definitely need, but there must be a reason that they're pursuing this so hard, and maybe it is that they do think that Leno's going to go.
Yeah, I think to see maybe Ramsdale as long-term future number 1 at Arsenal, whether it's this season or the season after that. From what I'm hearing, it's the Arsenal goalkeeping coach, Inaki Kana, who is pushing for this deal. He's obviously recommended that Ramsdale is the best option out there in the transfer market for the Gunners right now. So they're going with his judgment. They're really pursuing this deal as well. And we've already seen Arsenal's goalkeeping options not being the greatest. We saw Runarsson come in last season and struggled, I think, in that Carabao Cup game against Man City. And it seems like he's going to be on his way from Arsenal, maybe on loan. And they've also seen Matt Ryan after the end of his loan spell. He's moved on as well. So it's a position, it's been a problematic position for Arsenal. They really need to get this one right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they really do. And, it goes back to, Emi Martinez as well. And there have been some strange decisions in terms of goalkeeping. And it would be a bold call, as you say, if they are looking at him as the long-term number 1, then that does make sense. But there's a lot of pressure on him as well, because it's not a difficult time to go into. It's not an easy time, to go into Arsenal and have that kind of influence and pressure on you. So let's see whether they can open it up. But yeah, as I say, I do think there will be one more bid. If that doesn't come off, I do think they'll have to walk away.
Yeah, it'd be a strange one if Sheffield United were to turn down 30 million for Ramsdale. And I'm sure Ramsdale must be pushing for this move to happen so he can get back to the Premier League and get a move to the Emirates Stadium before the close of the transfer window. We're just less than 2 weeks away now from the EFL restarting, Dean. Not a lot of activity probably in the Championship transfer-wise, but Swansea, they need to find a manager, never mind players right now. Steve Cooper has left after being linked with several jobs over the summer. He has moved on from the Liberty Stadium. It's not been an easy recruitment job so far. They thought they had John Eustace, the QPR assistant manager, in the bag, ready to take over from Cooper, but he's turned it down. John Terry's been mentioned. We've had Jody Morris has held talks as well, John Terry's ex-Chelsea teammate, while MK Dons boss Russell Martin's also been in the frame as well. What's your latest take on this Swansea job? And John Terry, is he a real runner in the race for this or not?
I heard it quite soon after Cooper left. I was checking out what was going on, and one of the first names I heard was Jody Morris, so I was kind of pursuing that. And it came about really that Morris was in for the job, but not as him to be the head coach himself, but also to go in with John Terry as a partnership. And I know that they did speak about it, and John Terry, was happy to work with Jody Morris, and Jody Morris, interestingly, was happy to do that as well. Ideally, Jody's been looking for a job in his own right to become a manager. Opportunities aren't easy to come across, especially places where you can, get a job this high up the league ladder. But so he showed a willing to do that, and John Terry, it doesn't look like is going to be possible now. I don't know if I presume it's financial, because you see the other names that are being linked right now, and they're not kind of in that John Terry league. Yeah. So you've got to presume that that's the case. And Jody Morris, checked on it last night, and he's kind of ringing around players, clubs to see who he could even bring with him to Swansea if they can get this going now. So I think that certainly discussions have taken place there. There's definitely a possibility that Jody Morris could get that job. And because of where Swansea are right now, they don't have a lot of cash. They are leaning on youth players. They're going to lean on loan deals. And I guess those two things are real assets of Jody Morris. When you look at his career path, his previous with Chelsea, his roles there, his connections in the game, like that's where all of his coaching has really come from in youth teams and other clubs where he's worked with Frank Lampard. So a really interesting one because it's a bit of a gamble because he's kind of untested on his own, but doesn't sound like at this point that he's going to get it with John Terry.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, John Terry is ready for a break from football for a couple of months at least. He's obviously keen to go into management in his own right after learning the ropes at Aston Villa under Dean Smith. I think John Terry's probably getting ready to play a bit of golf and maybe a bit of TV work before stepping into that managerial role. And I think he's probably waiting for second season to start in England, probably which is around October, November time when lots of jobs become available. And I'm sure John Terry probably will be pretty high on the list for a number of clubs in the Championship if jobs do become available as well. But yeah, like you, Dean, I think Jody Morris would be a good fit for Swansea. Proven track record of working with younger players, and Swansea have really slashed their budget this year. No real money to make any major transfer signings, and a few players have left and could still leave before the end of the window. So it's a big job, but again, it's a big opportunity as well. Swansea are a big club and reached the playoffs the last couple of seasons. So I think it'd be a good job for anybody who does take it.
That's the thing, isn't it, with the Championship? It's always so wide open. And you look at it at the beginning of the season and you start to predict, you always put the big clubs up there. And it's really, really tough. And it's all obviously depends on who you can get through the door in terms of loans, because it's so often the case that they are the men that make a difference to your season. And I think that's why they would see Jody Morris as such a good candidate, because they know that whether it's that he leans back on his Chelsea days or whether it's just other coaches that he knows in other jobs around the country, that he can get good young talent in there that's hungry, because that's ultimately what they want right now, Swansea. They need people willing to prove themselves, willing to take that next step in their career and make a name for themselves. And, that's ideal because that's what Jody Morris is trying to do at this level as well.
Yeah, good opportunity there for Jody Morris if he does decide to go into management in his own right. And Swansea do play an attractive style of football, which I'm sure Jody Morris would also implement at the Liberty Stadium as well. So let's see if they can get this deal done for the former Chelsea man and Jody Morris taking his first steps into senior management. Right there, that's us here for another week on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week when we're into August, the final month of the window, when there should be lots of activity and lots of deals happening. We'll see you then.